Glenn Wagner is a gifted writer, a dynamic speaker, and a visionary leader. He's the founder and president of Future Lead, former vice president of Promise Keepers, a veteran in the struggle for the hearts and minds of men. Glenn, I'm sure partly, greatly, as a result of your own struggle with depression and burnout. I want you to tell us right out of the gate here, that depression cost you a plum pastoral post. Billy Graham's family worshipped at the church that you were called to.
His father was one of the founders of it, and they had since, moved up into the mountains and so forth, but there was still a strong connection, especially with my predecessor, who still travels and ministers with Franklin Graham. And so it was great folks, great church.
7 years? The
7
congregation
years.
Doubled?
Yeah,
You were successful.
Yes, yeah, paid down the debt significantly, and they were able to finally pay it off, I guess a year or two after I left, and go back for that was exciting, and to watch that happen. But in the midst of all of that, several years of moving into a process that I didn't understand, I had never experienced before. And
what process?
Well, I had battled off and on at times with discouragement and so forth, but, various spiritual disciplines, plowing forward, keeping on track, had always worked to pull me through those times, those perhaps melancholy, blues times, whatever you say, because any kind of ministry, if you care, can really begin to tear out of you. And while you're challenged and even conscious of trying to pour things back into your soul and into your life,
To refuel.
And there's not always an understanding, even personally within yourself, as to the ongoing toll that all of that has. And
How big was the congregation?
Oh, depends on how you count and who counts, I guess. But estimates were, when I left, were 3,400 to 4,000, somewhere in there. And I only tended
mega
to,
church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, but even the pastors in small towns and small churches, many of them, the demands on their lives are often greater than the mega church. So the burdens and the challenges are just different. In the small church, you're 24/7, you're on call, you try to take a day off, but, people do not have crises and deaths don't happen according to your schedule.
You're being critiqued every Sunday.
Yeah, being critiqued every Sunday, and how come not everyone is as a gifted preacher as everyone that's on TV or radio or whatever, and so your gifts are being compared to others. So all of that goes on, but also at the same time, you're walking with people who are struggling. Every life has its messes, every life has its ups and downs, its challenges. There are times when you can plow through them, with the grace of God and come out on the other side and look back. There are other times where the harder you try, the worse it gets. There's an embarrassment factor among Christians that, I'm reading the Bible more, I'm trying to pray more, I'm trying to do this more, I'm trying to fast more, and it's just not getting anywhere. And so the unique dynamics between, our own bodies that are fearfully, wonderfully, and really confusingly made, the spiritual aspects of spiritual warfare, an enemy that's always present, and then the physiological that at times kicks in and confuses what is a spiritual battle within my own soul, what is the physiological contributing to, and
which makes the realization of trouble sometimes a little vague, hard to pinpoint.
And who's speaking into my life that there is more than one dynamic that's got to be looked at and helped with, and that Christian cliches, even when it's the Word of God, a Bible verse, just thrown as a Band-Aid, bumper sticker theology doesn't help.
Doesn't fix it. Now, your wife, Susan, must have seen, I'm guessing that she saw signs of the need of refreshment. That new Harley Davidson in 2003, 2003 was part of her way of encouraging you to get out and get
what are the things that we enjoy doing? Because I am a pretty intense and focused person. And so that that kind of internal drive can take over. And you know, the discipline of solitude, at times I tried to implement because I believe in it, but then your mind takes you other places in the midst of it. So yeah, we saw that, we tried to do it. Susan didn't understand the intensity of where things were going with me. And I think because I masked it well, not to deceive as much as, you know, I got to be strong for everybody else. I've got to be strong as a pastor. I've got to be strong as a husband, as a father. And what happens if I fall apart? And so you just kind of keep trying to go. And it's really more about a self-deception. It's not pride as much as it is, and it could be a root of pride, I don't know, as it is, you know, a concern for others that drive you. And so Susan saw it. It didn't hit her with great intensity until we were driving somewhere very familiar, and I stopped at a red light, and which is a good thing. And when the light turned green, I couldn't move. I didn't know where we were, where we needed to go. She had to help navigate the car off the road.
Your brain shut down.
Yeah, just everything was gone. And so, okay, now what? You know, and
does God have to allow something that dramatic so that you actually get the restoration you need?
I think at times it's God working. God's always, you know, working. I think other times we create, unfortunately, environments within our Christian church communities that are not as healthy as they ought to be, where the realities of struggling with these sorts of things can be honestly talked about and openly talked about in a non-judgmental way, but also in a truly holistic way. You know, where's the spiritual come in, where's the physical come in, where's, you know, all of this, and to get help and to have the right influences in your life. And that type of community is hard to find.
It so needs to be talked about and provided for within the church, because it is, well, we had the statistic, 8.5% of all adults in Canada, just all adults, are going to suffer some form of major depression in their lifetime. The church is not excluded here. I was a student at Cape and Ray Bible School in, what year was that? 81, in 81. And there was a mature woman there who'd suffered a nervous breakdown. And I've got to tell you, I was a believer of 3 years, and I thought, how could this even possibly happen? For someone indwelt by Jesus Christ, the all-sufficient one. Well, then I went to a seminar with David Watson, the Billy Graham of England at the time, for pastors and lay leaders, and he confessed that for years, only his wife Anne knew that he suffered from cyclical depression. And as he shared this with us, and believe me, that was a little earthquake under my feet again, he said, we do not identify with each other at the point of our strengths, but at the point of our weaknesses. The secret of successful ministry is the willingness to be vulnerable. And yet I get phone calls from a woman who will say, you know, I'm an elder's wife, I'm struggling with depression, and I can't tell anybody.